go. Under the folder in fronter, I've put in the presentation templates that Rafaela sent us. So these are the A1 boards. So they're kind of our starting point because they show us what the final presentation should look like. I've also got a link here to a Dropbox folder, which has got a lot of trees and people and all that kind of stuff in it that I used to use in my own company about 10 years ago, which I had to pay for. So I'm giving you that for free. Never say I never give you anything. I've got a link to a Pinterest site here, which is kind of a set of landscape architecture presentation boards. So if you take one of them here, this is kind of the thing that Rafaela is talking about when she's saying make a presentation board. So you have basically, usually these boards, they follow the same kind of method. You have one, killer image that's just to drag people in, to make people focus on the board. You've got some strategy drawings down the side here, which is the same plan repeated 4 times. One of them concentrates on green space, one of them concentrates on pedestrian flow or cycle flow or whatever, one concentrates on traffic and how you raise the traffic and so on. So they're just very simple diagrammatic representations of the site. This beautiful projector is not very clear, but anyway. And then you have some text explaining it, and then maybe some kind of constructional detail. You can't really see that here, but this is a detail of the joint between the different surfaces on the landscaping scheme there. So that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do. The text here will explain your method and your process and your concept idea. But the drawings themselves can be set up very easily, because even if you did this in detail lines in Revit, you just have to repeat it and add a certain amount of information to it with Photoshop, and you can get the whole thing done. So there's a couple of different options in here, but they all follow the same kind of idea, is that you have one killer image that draws you from across the room, because these are going to be printed out that size. And then you have some diagrammatic things that explain the concept and the process and all that kind of stuff. And there's some text, and maybe there's some representations of the text. But it always follows the same process, more or less. In this case here, they've decided that the overall landscape plan is the killer image. It's the most interesting thing. So you can make a decision as to how you want to do it. Here they've really concentrated on the cross section across the site. So they've taken a cross section at several points, and that's usually a nice idea to explain how a landscape works in each situation. By simply adding trees to it like that and some people, you can actually really bring it to life, and you can play with the kind of the opacity and the transparency of the images and so on to put the thing together. So that's that. I've also got a tutorial here. I won't get around everything because, again, Photoshop is a big program. But if you want to go further, another tutorial I made for a previous DC course was how to, change as kind of a standard Revit render into a more kind of focused, a more convincing perspective that you can really use to sell to the client. So I got some tips in there, and a lot of the techniques that you use in the perspective are the same as the techniques I'm going to use for the plan view, because there's only really 3 or 4 that you use over and over and over again. And of course, you can get better and better at adding details to it and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to get into that, you can check up this. I think it's about a half-an-hour video, which goes through how you just set up all that stuff into the image there, just to give you a little bit more pop on the image. Okay. But again, all those techniques I'm going to go through as well here in a certain kind of a way. And just to let you know, this is the Turbo Squid collection that I've kind of given you. So in here, there's a lot of people that are already cut out. They're cut out on one layer where where there's people, and there's another layer behind where there's a shadow. So you can play with how you use those people. You can either take them out without their shadow, or you can add their shadow. You can distort the shadow, depending on how you set them into your image. But I've put them in there so you don't have to go around cutting out hundreds and hundreds of people if you want to make some good perspectives or whatever. And again, if you want to follow along with what I'm doing here, I've actually put the 2 files that I'm going to use up on Fronter under example files. So the first one is a Revit file. So if you just download that Revit file, you can either follow along with me, or you can kind of use your own project if you want to start working on your own project in this. But if I open up the Revit file here, just to start with. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to open it up in 2018. I'll open it up in 2017. That would make more sense.
Will you be recording this?
Yeah, I'm recording it right now, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to open up that file that I made. It's just called Square. And go into level 1 here. Now, I didn't bother making a 3D model of this. You can use your 3D model, of course, to make this if you've made it in 3D. But what I've done here is I've just made some detail lines. Just very, very quickly, just to represent some kind of a square. So the idea here is that these are the buildings around the main square here. This is the square itself. And then I've decided to put in a kind of a landscape element here. So some concrete area with a kind of a standing platform, a planter for a tree, and then a kind of a grass area here. So that's kind of our starting point for the Photoshop model. Now, the important thing when you're dealing with Photoshop is an idea of pixel density, because when you're making something for print, you have to be careful that the pixel density that you're making the image in is not too extreme, so that when it goes to print, that it actually starts losing pixels. I was doing a competition entry once years ago, where at the very last night, evening before, we had the whole thing ready to go, and the guy who was doing he was taking the drawings out of AutoCAD, putting them into Photoshop, and everything looked fantastic on the screen. But when we sent it to the printer, it came back, all the black lines were kind of dotted or missing or pixelated or whatever, because he'd done the image at such a high level of quality that the printer couldn't actually tolerate that level of quality. So when it came back, the competition board, which is supposed to sell the project to everybody, was actually useless. I mean, we sent it in anyway, but we had no expectation that it was going to be it was going to get anywhere, because the main thing about the drawing line work had been removed from the printer. So I see that always as a lesson in how to set up something for Photoshop. So what I usually do is, if I've made this drawing here, I always set it up on a sheet first. So what I've done here is I've just made an A1 sheet, and this is an A1 sheet where I've removed all the title block information and whatever. But I know that when I've inserted the drawing here, I know it's going to come in at 1 to 200, which is the size of the plan that you want to have on your sheet. What that means is, if I generate this A1 as a PDF, it will be the right size for the project. If I go in here, for example, let's have a look at what I have here, the presentation boards. I'm just going to open up these Photoshop files. Just got to cancel that. These are the presentation boards that Rafaela has made for everybody. So these are kind of templates that you can use. So you can go in here and you can change your project name, change the students, and all that kind of stuff. But what she's also done is set it up in such a way that you can really just insert your stuff into it. And if we go into the image, canvas size, and canvas size in Photoshop is the size of the entire image. I go into canvas size here. We can see that it's actually been designed to be 84.1 centimeters high and 59.4 wide, which is an A1 sheet. which is exactly the right size for us. So we can see that if we print our PDF at the right scale, as if you're just printing from Revit, it will come in at the right scale, so we can insert it into the presentation sheet in Photoshop there. Okay. So that's the first thing we'll do. So I'm just going to go into Revit again. Now, does anybody want to follow along with me, or will I just give this as a kind of a demonstration? Because there's a lot of steps in this. I don't know if you want to...
As long as you're making a recording, I'll say just go for it so we can get as much as possible.
All right, okay. Well, let's see how it goes. Okay, so let's just print. And I'm going to use this Qt PDF writer, which is a type of PDF writer which gives you an opportunity to make an A1. And let's just say current window, just set it up. Let's see how it's set up. Oh, it's giving us the usual print stuff in Revit. Let's go to that first. Typical Revit issue. Qt PDF writer. Set up. Okay, so let's go into A1. We zoom it to 100%, center it, and we'll just make it landscape and press OK. Okay. Oh, I need to do current window. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'll put it on the desktop. I'll just call it Square 01. Save. Okay. So now let's just close down this one here. So now I'm going to just go into Open, and because Adobe is who makes Photoshop, and they're the same guy that makes PDFs. So basically, if you have a PDF, you can open it directly in Photoshop as a PSD file, which is the file type that Photoshop uses. So I'm just going to open up Square 01, press Open. And you can see that it's bringing in the image size, which is more or less the same as the one we want to. So we know that it's more or less to scale. Well, it will be to scale, but the image might be a little bit, in overall terms, a little bit bigger. So, and we can see that the resolution is at 300 pixels per inch, which is fine. And that looks okay. So if I just press OK. What they've done here is they've brought it in. Now, you can't see it because there's nothing behind it here. So what I'm going to do is just, now it's telling me it's not printed, is make a new layer behind it. So just going to say layer here. And let's just Control A. And we just want to fill that. Right. So you can see, if I zoom in here, you can see that there's the line drawing that we have that's been brought into the right size, okay? Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, so now we have it to that kind of size here, but I'm just going to, it's probably a little bit big for what we want. So I'm going to use this tool up here, this selection tool. Now, the main thing in Photoshop is how you select things. Because basically, you don't really want to be drawing anything in Photoshop. You just want to be copying stuff, clipping stuff out, and kind of collaging stuff together. So you don't want to actually have to draw things, because that's when things start to get unrealistic. So methods of selection are one of the most important things. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them today. So I'm going to use, first of all, I'm going to use this rectangular selection tool, which is basically just the same as drawing a crop box. And I'm going to crop it around the main part of the building there, which I think is maybe the most important part of the building. You probably, I don't know if you can't really see it on the screen here, but we'll zoom in a second. And once I crop it there, I'm going to go up to Image. And then just go to crop. So now I've actually cropped the view to the size that we want to make the image at, okay? You can still see that the detail is in here. But the important thing is that we've got a background layer, but we've also got a layer which is the line work. If I press this little I button here, it switches the line work on and switches it off. So let's just rename that. If I can find the rename button. when I was really doing Photoshop, this was about 8-9 years ago. So some things are a little bit different. Double tap the layer. Left click. Or what? Right click. No? Oh, there we go, yeah. So I'm just going to call that line work. So we have some kind of a record of it, okay? And now we just use the selection tool to deselect what we have selected. Now what I want to do is I want to set up a selection for the square itself. So we have some kind of way of selecting all these elements in the square here. So one of the nice selection tools to use, and one of the quick ones, maybe not the finest one to use, but what we want to do is do this quick and dirty, because it doesn't have to be super fine as if we were, producing it from a photography firm or something. We have a button here which is called the Magic Wand tool. And the Magic Wand tool is really the nice selection tool, because it allows us to select a lot of stuff that has the same kind of color tone at the same time. So what I'm going to do is, the layers of the file here are the important thing. So I want to select the line work layer, because that allows us to use the line work to define the space. So I have the Magic Wand tool selected. So I'm just going to select here like this, and you can see that it's made these kind of dotted lines all the way around. So it's actually selected the entire road space for us completely. Now, that selection is really important. We'll be coming back to that again and again and again. So what we can actually do is save that selection, so we don't have to go around and select it each time. So I'm just going to go up to Select. I'm going to say Save Selection. And I'm just going to call this, let's just call this Road Surface. Even though it's not a road, but at least we know what it will be. And press OK. So now we've got the line work selected, so we want to start putting a material on that. Now, this is where it just starts to get a little bit easy. I think what I'll do is I'll take it as far as the material, and then maybe I'll get you all to do it up to this point, because there's no point in me continuing if you're not getting anything out of it. So I'll just go in here to Chrome, and I'm just going to type in concrete texture. And we can find something in here that kind of relates to what we want to get out of it. I think I used something like, let's use something like this maybe, or maybe something like, no, that's a little bit too specific. Yeah, let's just use this one. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to right click. Now, this doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be exactly the material that you want it to be at the end, because once you put it into the Photoshop file, we can start to play with what it looks like as well. So you can see here, this is probably a wall, because it's a concrete, it seems like it's cast in place. It's got some holes to hold the formwork together. So but at least it allows us to start the process. So I'm just going to press right click and then copy the image. And then when we go into this file here, I can just press Control V and then paste the image in. And I'm actually going to do it a couple of times, and then just use the Move tool just to put it kind of together like that. Whoops. Now you can see that once you do that, it actually creates a layer for every single one of these little squares that I've put in there. So I want to just put them together, and you can actually merge these layers together. So you can either right click and say merge down, or I like to just use Control E, and if you watch the layers, they start to actually join up together. So now the whole thing is just one element, okay? So once we've done that, we can do it again. Control A, which means select all. Control C, which means copy. Control V, which actually just pastes it in place, okay? And then Control E, which merges it down, so then it's all one piece again. And once we have it, we can start to just use it. So I'm going to press Control T, or you can go to Edit and use something called Free Transform. But the shortcut for that is Control T. So Control T, if I do that, I can do a few things. I can stretch it to place. I can actually rotate it if I wanted to. I could make it a different shape, so we could do whatever we wanted to. But and you can distort it. You can do several things with it. But all we're concerned about right now is actually just maybe Control T is maybe distorting it so that it fills up the entire image there. Oh shit, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Control T. I'll have to edit the video so I'm not saying shit on it. Okay, so once I've done that, I can press, the move button again, which is at the top here, which kind of asks us, do you want to apply the transformation? And then we can apply it. Okay. Oh man, this is the worst hay fever ever. Anyway. Okay, so now we have the material in place. So then we can go back to select. We can load the selection that we made before, which is road surface. Press OK. And you can see the shape of the road surface, it turns up again. Now we can do a couple of things here. If I say, what we want to do is mask the rest of the material out where we don't want it to show through. So the button down here will allow us to do that. This is the masking button. If I press it here, you can see that it actually masks everything around the building itself. So we have the beginnings of a kind of a road surface there, or a pattern for the landscape. I mean, I would see that as a basis to any kind of a landscape. You can add textures, you can add shadows to that, and all that kind of stuff afterwards. But that's kind of the basis thing. Does everybody want to try this? And then I'll continue with the rest of the stuff afterwards, because this is kind of the key skill for this type of drawing. Okay. Okay, I tell you what. Let's put another surface. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing the same thing, but I'll just put the grass in here, just so we got something. We got something to play with. I'm going to move the line work. These layers here, the position of the layers also relates to how they display. It's also the order of display. So if you want to have the line work always on top of the colors, you can just grab the line work and with the left button and drag it up to the top of the image, and that means that it will always. If I just zoom in here, you can see the line work is now displaying on top of the image, which is the ideal thing to do. By the way, a shortcut to zoom in and out is you hold down the Z button and then just left click. If you're in the middle of a command, you can always press Z. And if you want to zoom out again, hold down Z and Alt, ALT. And you can see that the symbol, well, you can't really see it there because it's so tiny, but the symbol turns to a minus. And then if you left click again, you can zoom back out again.
Also just hold Alt and scroll.
Yeah, you can do that too. I prefer to do it this way. It's a little bit more controllable. There's a lot of options on this kind of stuff. Anyway. So let's just say we want to put the grass area in here. So let's just do the same exercise again. I'm just going to go in here and just type grass texture. I mean, Google image search is really the key to all this Photoshop stuff. So I just want to find a texture that's not too offensive. Maybe a little bit of a rough texture. Something like that. So I'm just going to right click, copy the image, Photoshop. And I'm going to select the image above which I want to put it in. I can't remember if it goes above or below. Let's find out. Yeah, it goes above. So there's the grass texture. If we don't want to be too special about it, if we just want to throw this together, we can just say Control T, and then we can just kind of stretch the image to fit the area. I mean, it will have kind of scaling problems. You can kind of make a decision about this for yourselves, but when you scale a texture up rather than copying it, it does have an effect on how the image is going to feel, because people automatically notice when grass is 10 times the size that it should be. But so if you want to do this properly, you can do the same process again. You copy it around and you try and cover up the joins with some kind of technique. But anyway, let's just take a shortcut here. I'm going to press apply, and let's move the line work up on top again so we can see it. And we can actually then, just to make it very visible for us, we can actually press the I button. So we can hide the grass first of all. And this time around, I'm going to use the magic wand just to select this area. And then I'm going to hold down Shift so that it will add to the selection and select that area. So both those areas we want to be in grass. So then once we've selected them, we could save the selection, but let's not bother about it for the moment. I can switch the layer back on again, and once again I can select layer mask. Whoops, I did that wrong. You need to select the actual layer you're going to mask, otherwise it's going to mask the wrong layer. So I select that and press layer mask, and you can see it's masked the grass in to the area we want. So that's kind of the same process again. Now, we want to also have some kind of control over how that grass represents itself. So we also have the opportunity, if I select the layer here, is that we have this adjustments tab at the top here. And that adjustments tab, it has all these nice little symbols that you can kind of add adjustment layers to the grass with. So the first one I like to use is the hue saturation, because that really controls the color and the kind of the brightness of the grass image. So if I take the saturation down, you can see that it starts to remove a lot of the color from the image. You can take it all, if you take it all the way down, it turns black and white. But you can either take it down or take it up, or you can also just change the hue of the grass. So you might want to say, well, the image has got more of a. It depends the atmosphere you want to create. If you have like a nighttime image, or if you have a certain kind of landscape idea that you want to express, maybe some kind of grass that you would find by the seaside or whatever, you might change the color of it rather than having to go and find a specific grass. Or if you do it there, it looks like you're wandering through Scotland in the autumn. So you can kind of play with that there. We can also change the lightness of it here. And it's really by eye, because it is a kind of an image program. So you kind of have to make these judgments as to what you want the image to look like. There's no specific way, or there's no wrong way of doing it. It's just, basically how talented you get at this kind of stuff is what you can do. So that's the basic one you can use. So you can see that it actually has added a hue saturation layer here. Now, if I do this, you can see what it's doing is it's actually affecting the entire image at the same time. So that is one option. You can either do it for the entire image, or you can say, I only want to deal with this specific layer here where the grass is on. And if you want to do that, you press this button here. And then if I do it, you can see that I'm just affecting the individual layer itself, okay? So you can adjust it separately. So then we can go back maybe to the paving layer. I'm going to do an adjustment here. Let's do the same thing. Let's just change the hue a little bit. Oh, we need to make it on the layer itself. Whoops. That's not giving us a lot of work. What's going on there? Oh, there we go. I think the story with this is I've actually inserted a concrete layer that has no color information in it. It's a black and white image, so when I'm turning the color up and down, it's not doing anything. So that's fine. Anyway, so anyway, that won't work for that one. But that's the kind of way you kind of you deal with controlling the colors of the actual image itself. Another useful to use is the color balance. And this will allow us to change the color of the layer itself with a lot more detail. You can actually change the amount of magenta, yellow, and cyan there is in the image, depending on the effect you want to get out of your image. Okay. So if we leave that as the basic, so that's how you put surfaces on, and that's the basic thing. But the next important thing, just to add life to it, is how you put people and trees and all that kind of stuff in there. But put them in there in such a way as it's not going to take you forever to do it. So again, your friend here is Google image search. So if I go in here and I say tree top view, and I'm going to say PNG, because a PNG file is the best type of file you can have in Photoshop, because a PNG usually removes the white area around an image like this, so it easily goes into Photoshop without too much clipping or whatever. But let's take this image, for example, here. Now, I'm not sure it's a PNG, but and you can see that it's actually got some watermarks on it. You can't see it there, but it has some watermarks on it. So it's an image that you should really pay for if you want to use it. But we don't need to be so fine because we don't have that level of quality that we need. I can see here this looks like it's going to be a PNG. So if I just right-click here, copy the image, and go back down to Photoshop, and then just press paste. I can see it's coming, but it's not a PNG file, so it has some background information in here. But we have a tree in there, so let's just put the tree in the right position here first of all. And then I'm just going to zoom into place here. And the way to get rid of this background image is another selection tool. So I'm going to go up to Select, and this time I'm going to select the color range. So if I select color range and just click on the black area, it's giving us a kind of a preview as to what it's selecting there. So I can move the fuzziness up and down here. Fuzziness just means how precise are we talking about. If I put the fuzziness down to 0, it's only going to select that exact color that I've selected there. So let's just put it up around about here and press OK. And once I do that, what I like to do in this case, if we have the right layer selected, is just to delete it, just by pressing the delete button. And then if I deselect the image, we have a tree there that, whoops, it seems to have taken all that stuff with it as well. I have this set on several layers at once, but anyway. This is what happens when you don't check out the latest version of a program before you start trying to tease the damn thing. Okay, well, so let's say we select the right layer here. Oh, that's not working. There we go. So what if you have something like that, what you can do is you can actually go around and you can either use the selection tool, the selection box, to just select the particular layer and delete it, or you can use the what they call the polygonal lasso tool, which allows you just to draw around areas and delete them, or you can use the eraser tool, which is this fellow here, which you can actually control in size. And we need to deselect it first. And you can actually just kind of blur the edges of it as well if you want to, because often you don't want to have this very harsh selection at the edge of your image anyway. And of course you can control all these things as well. We can change a different brush type, different size, so you can be very precise as to what you want to delete and so on. Now that's not a great job there, but that's what we're getting away with for today.
Which tool was that, Shane?
Yeah, that was the eraser tool. It's this button here. So now if we select the right thing here, we use the move tool, we grab the tree, we put it in place. So let's say we want it to be there. And I'm going to move it at the top here so it's above the line work like that. So there we go. Now if we want to then give some depth to the image, this is where you start to maybe you can add certain effects to it. So you want to give a shadow to it. You can use this button down here, the FX button, which gives us the option to put in a drop shadow here. So down at the bottom here we got this drop shadow idea. And you can see straight away it actually puts a shadow under the tree here for us. But we can have control over where we want the shadow to be. So we can actually change the angle of which way we want it to go. We can make a decision as to where the sun is coming from and so forth. We can also change the size of the blur of the image like that if we want to. We don't have to be very specific about it. And also the spread of it, how far it goes. But also the distance, we can control the distance away from the tree. So we can actually make a judgment based on how much you want to give, how much depth you want to give it, how much height you want to give it in terms of your overall idea. Now, it's usually a good idea not to give it too much precision like that. So I usually blur it a little bit, because later on you want to kind of blur a few things just to give the whole thing some kind of idea as to what's going on. Okay. Should we just pause that for a second, and then we'll see. Okay, so let's say I'm leaving the shadows to last, because we want to, first of all, the first thing we want to do is we want to put in some people, because the thing about a landscape project is it's completely dead unless you show how the people are moving around in there. So it's the same procedure to put in people, is that, Google image search is the guy. So if we just go people top view. Again, you can try and get some of these free people. Let's try that don't have that much stuff going on. So let's just copy this one and paste in here. And you have to make a judgment as to whether they're the right scale or not based on how your project is working. But if I go in here, first of all, this can be a very quick process. So I'm going to use the magic tool again, magic wand tool. And holding down shift to make sure I select all the kind of funny edges and so on around the whole thing. And then just delete them. And then what I tend to do is I use the adjustments to just take down the brightness. Oh, I have to select just this layer. Take down the brightness, turn up the contrast. And we can also use the, let's try the balance. No, let's not do the balance. Let's do the lightness of the whole thing. Bring that down. Whoops. Why is it selecting the whole lot? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm just going to take a step backward on that one. Oh, by the way, in Photoshop, there is a history command. So if you feel like you've made a series of mistakes in a row, which is the way Photoshop works, is that you kind of play with stuff. You check if you like it, and if you don't like it, you usually have to step back a lot of steps in one go. So you have this history under the Windows tab. You have this history thing here, which actually shows you all the commands you've taken in the project. So you can actually just come back here and step back as far as there if you want to, and you can keep that pinned to the side here if you really want to, just in case you're going to make a lot of mistakes, which you probably are, because that's the process of Photoshop. But anyway, so let's say we have it set up the way we want to, and I'm going to merge it down. So now that is one thing, and then we can just Control A. If I select the right layer, layer 6, and then Control V, which pastes it. Do the same thing again, though we shouldn't have to. And basically, you can just move these guys around. Whoops. Make sure you select the right one. Move these guys around. Rotate them using Control T, and kind of get it to such a state that you can't tell the difference, or you can't, specifically say which is which crowd, so you can't tell that they're all different people or whatever. And you can clip them out, and you can remove people, and just give it a sense of a little bit more chaos. If I select Control X there and delete that person, then I can kind of put them in over here. And kind of move them up there and so on. So you can just add a kind of a crowd-based environment for the whole kind of thing. And once you've done that, then you would start to add shadows for all these people just to allow it. And the shadows in the project should obviously relate to the shadows that you have that's in the drop shadow of the trees. So you need to select the right color, and it should also be the same shadows that you use in the building itself. So there should be some kind of quality of the the shadow quality is quite important. In that case, so you don't have shadows that are totally different from other shadows.
Shane, can I interrupt a second?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Let me just.
That's very interesting.
Okay, so then this is where you get a little bit of a chance to do some painting. for your shadows. So again, we can use the selection that we made earlier. So if I load the selection, road surface, okay. I'm going to make a new layer here. So let's put it. Let's just leave it there. So make a new layer, and I'm going to choose a kind of a grayish color, and I'm going to choose a brush here. And let's get a soft brush, something like that. And you know, let's make it very soft. Make it quite big. Now, if we start to paint, you can see that we can actually just paint the edges of the buildings here very, very quickly, and you can kind of layer a certain amount of shadow on the building, but it starts to pop the building out of the whole thing. It doesn't have to be very exact, because all you're trying to do is give the sense that there's a kind of 3D going on in here. You can't see it so well on the screen here, so let's just darken it up a little bit, you know. And you can use this kind of effect to show, you know, light on the ground or shadows anywhere or whatever. Let's just turn the size of the brush down a little bit. And then if we zoom in here, that's okay. If we zoom in here, we can start to paint in the shadows for the people as well. Now, if you press the brush here, and then you hold down the Shift key and press over here, it automatically draws a line between them. So you can start to, you know, add shadows in some kind of a way. They don't have to be so perfect. They don't have to be, you know, calculated. They just need to give the sense of what's going on in the building. And you can start to add details, you know, around the area. You can start to put things together, and you can start to maybe blend with the shadow of the tree, and you know, all that kind of stuff. If you want to get artistic about the whole kind of thing, but really, that is the kind of the basis of everything to do with making Photoshop plans. I don't think I'll give you anything else regarding that at the moment until you get a little bit more advanced. Okay, I'm just gonna say one more thing: is that when you finish your image, you could obviously you save it. So let's just save it first of all. I'll put it on the desktop. Square 01 save. Okay, but you don't necessarily need to take all the layers out if you're going to add it to another project or to a sheet. So what you do is you go to export, and you can say quick export as PNG. Put it on the desktop again. I'll just say in class. Then when I go into the presentation sheet, I should be able to find it. Let's just go into open class. Here it is, but it's a flat image. If you can see down here, there's no layers anymore. It's just one thing now. So you don't have to worry about things moving around when you start to insert it into your sheet. So if I press Control A now, Control C for copy, and go to the sheet and press Control V to paste, it turns up in the sheet at exactly the correct scale. So it's still at 1 to 200, because we've been very careful about how we make sure that it comes out of Revit in the right scale. Okay, so then you have it as part of your board presentation at quite a high level of detail. Okie doke. Now I will shut up.